it's my reflection of it. And I think it's time to formally introduce Lelan and Alison. Lelan and Alison, they are representing Wise Cosmos Educational Initiative, and Lelan Harris is a founding member and executive director of Wise Cosmos, and he has served as a teacher, leader, consultant, and healer in settings ranging from public schools and corporations to graduate institutions and independent Waldorf schools. And he's going to speak from Reno, Nevada. And our guest, Alison, is the executive administrator of Wise Cosmos Educational Initiative. And Alison, speaking from New Zealand, and she has been a participant and leader in several anthroposophical initiatives, including eurythmy, astrosophy, and the Christian community in New Zealand. So, dear friends, Lelan and Alison, over to you, and thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you, Andre. It's really great to be here. And I just want to open with a thank you to the Rudolf Steiner branch, Chicago, for this series of Zoom online presentations that Chicago branch has been doing for 3 or 4 years now, I think. And this really came home to me, the significance of the gift of Chicago branch, in that a few days ago, I received an email, and I want to share this email for just a brief paragraph that I want to share with you, kind of as an opening. It has to do with a presentation that I made here with Chicago branch in 2021 entitled Combining the Most Genuine Inward Esotericism with the Greatest Conceivable Public Openness and Deeds. And one of the things that's been part of my, whenever I get asked to speak at Front Range Anthroposophical Cafe or Chicago branch or elsewhere, I always use those opportunities as a way to think about how to share whatever it is, one of the things that whatever at the moment I happen to be really paying attention to. And at that time, I had come across this quote from Rudolf Steiner, combining the most genuine inward esotericism with the greatest conceivable public openness and deeds. It was kind of at the end of a lecture, and it just gripped my heart. And I just wanted to figure out, I wanted to figure out how to do that in my own life. And I wanted to, and then I had this upcoming opportunity with Chicago branch. So I just wanted to just figure out how to share it with people. And I didn't claim at all to begin to have an idea of really what that was or how that could all look. But I just sort of shared in the moment what it was that I was paying attention to. And I always do that. And afterwards, I sometimes question, how helpful was I? Did that sort of just genuine sharing in the midst of my labors and struggles and development, did that really help? Well, here's this. Just a few days ago, I received this email from somebody I'd never, didn't recognize the name, and it says, "Dear Lelan, thank you so very much for your response." Oh, excuse me. Oh, sorry, I pulled up the wrong quote. Let's see. That was part of the conversation. Let me see. Sorry, that's kind of embarrassing. Here it is. I just wanted to say thank you so much for your amazing presentation that I watched on YouTube via Rudolf Steiner branch Chicago, combining the most genuine esotericism with the greatest conceivable public openness and deeds. So much resonated with me. And yet there was so much more to contemplate and work with and work on. You're such a great inspiration and a wonderful guide and leader. Thank you for all of this. Wishing you much love in all that you do. Well, the reason I want to share that is because it's not just me. I could use those same words for so many presenters at Chicago branch who just as genuinely and authentically share with us what they're paying attention to, what they're working on, what they're striving towards. And it is such a gift to humanity that I just wanted to take this time to express my real heartfelt gratitude to Chicago branch for all that you are, all that you do for us.
Lelan, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So,
It's the transformative power of your gift to humanity. Okay. And all of us are this way in other people's lives, but that's like another topic. So here we go. We come together. I'm going to screen share here for a little while. We're going to go in and out of screen share. We've got Alison and I have a fun presentation for you today. We're going to be going back and forth with different modalities. So if we begin here. There we go. So we've titled this, The World is Continually Dying in Light, a Martinmas Diwali Clairvoyance Opportunity. And it is I want to tell you a little bit about where it comes from. In part, it comes from a presentation that I made at the Front Range Anthroposophical Cafe 2 years ago called In the Darkness, Through the Spirit, Light Dawns Ever Anew Within Us. And there are a number of times in the liturgical year, the festival cycle of the year, where light is a significant theme, and each time it has a different perspective, a different focus, a different emphasis. And Martinmas is one of those. It's one of those. It's the light in the darkness is an aspect of the theme. And so I had the opportunity to speak around Martinmas, and I just want to say, and then there's also, but in other cultures besides the Christian culture, there are other festivals of light and dark, and one of them is the Hindu festival of Diwali. And Alison's going to share a little bit about Diwali in a moment. But first, I'll start with one that this audience may be more familiar with, but in case you're not, just say a little bit about it. Today, November 11th, is Martinmas, the Feast of St. Martin, often celebrated as a lantern festival. And it's traditionally, year after year, celebrated on November 11th. And Martinmas falls at sort of the precise midpoint between Michaelmas and Christmas Eve. And so if we have some familiarity with the significance of and the emphasis and the priority and the soul development work of Michaelmas and the soul development work of Christmas Eve moving into the Holy Nights, then we have this interesting juxtaposition, this midpoint between those Michaelmas and Christmas Eve points, which is Martinmas. And Rudolf Steiner's original calendar of the soul verse for the week of Martinmas, which was week 32 in that particular year, appears descriptive of what we know about St. Martin as an exemplar of our own journey from Michaelmas into the Holy Nights. And I just realized it didn't say anything about St. Martin. So here is one of these. There's many images of the sort of some of the stories of St. Martin, but very, very briefly, he grew up in culture, in a medieval culture, where it was one of the highest and best uses of one's life if one wanted to dedicate oneself to God to the fullest, body, soul, and spirit, was to go off and fight the infidels. And so he has a backstory that led to this being a possibility, and he went off and he fought and for God against those who were considered to be evil. He was part of the good, and he was battling the evil, putting them to death, and in the process came to question whether that was actually what was going on. And so he started on his way back. And so he had this spiritual transformation. And on his way back home, he had this sort of blinding epiphany from the Bible about the story of that Jesus Christ tells, that if you come across someone who is without something and you have that something, then give what you have to the other. If the other, one of the examples that Jesus gives, if you come across someone who doesn't have a coat, then give them yours. And so he is in the midst of this soul transformative work, trying to decide how to be, who to be, because he no longer fits the cultural expectations of what it means to be a godly man, a godly human being. And is in this midst of this dark night of the soul, with this light of the scripture illuminating his soul, and winter is coming or has come, and he comes across this man who is shivering and wounded and frail and striving to live, who doesn't have a coat. And the story goes that he had this cloak and he cut it in half and kept half for himself and gave half to the other. And he went on from there to do so many other good things. His life was truly transformed by the light in his inner darkness, that he eventually was recognized as a saint. So anyway, Rudolf Steiner's Calendar of the Soul verse, I think, especially if we have some sense of the story, we can read this and we get much more than just that story tells us, but we get perhaps a little bit of a nuanced insight into Martinmas. I feel my own force bearing fruit and gaining strength to give me to the world. My inmost being, I feel charged with power to turn with clearer insight toward the weaving of life's destiny. Today is Martinmas, dear friends. I feel my own force bearing fruit and gaining strength to give me to the world. My inmost being, I feel charged with power to turn with clearer insight toward the weaving of life's destiny. I mentioned that the Front Range Anthroposophical Cafe presentation provided me with an opportunity and time to engage in soul exercises and participate in group reflection that assist human beings to quicken within themselves the seed of Christ's light in the deepest darkness of night. And this that particular presentation is still available on the FRAC website if you're interested in it. And so as Alison and I, upon the invitation of Chicago branch, began to contemplate what was going on in our own lives, one of the things that I thought about is the fact of, okay, 2 years ago, shared where I was at that point. Where am I now? Where have I come in the last 2 years? And Alison contributed her thoughts, and so in our conversation, we asked ourselves the question. We asked a whole bunch of questions. We're sharing all this different stuff. Alison and me, they're thinking about this. Emails are going back and forth. We're having these conversations. Well, we're going over here. All these different things we were paying attention to, and then by paying attention to them, even more things came up. And you probably recognize that from your own studies and engagement with that, with truth, and with striving to become the best possible person, to achieve, complete your karmic necessities for this incarnation, and to manifest your destiny fully and completely. And so in the midst of all of that conversation, one of the questions that rose up, what does it mean to be a light worker? And this led us to what Rudolf Steiner declares is one of the world's secrets. Okay, whoa, okay, perk up our ears. One of the world's secrets, the world is continually dying in the light. Thankfully, he adds that the world is also continually beginning, continually germinating in the dark. Which raises the next question: what does it mean to be a dark worker? And together we want to just give you some starting places that we have thought about and want to share as two of these indications that Rudolf Steiner offers regarding these world secret questions through eurythmy and clairvoyance exercises interwoven with readings and discussions. Now, I don't know the author of this quote, but this is sort of a standard description that's out there in the world, non-anthroposophical world. And it says, being a light worker means committing to doing God's work of co-creating a world of peace and love through forgiveness and service to one another. Well, yeah. A light worker can be a healer, a poet, a teacher, or a parent, but being a light worker means doing our best to live the Christ life. Being a light worker means anchoring the light of God into the world. If our work is not guided by the light of God, then it's simply not light work. And that's, I trust that we can resonate with that as at least a simple starting place. Well, in Rudolf Steiner, in his lecture series called Color, Lecture 1, Thought and Will as Light and Darkness, was a lecture that Alison came across. And this became what we are going to build. Really, the majority of what we're going to share comes from this lecture. And we can't share the whole lecture. We're only going to grab a couple of pieces of it. One of the things that he says is the light which becomes thought we do not see because we live in it. In light as thinking men, it is ourselves. The light which becomes thought we do not see because we live in it. In light as thinking men, it is ourselves. This is one of those sentences that one can just take even out of context and just meditate on it, contemplate it, see what arises as we open our soul to the spiritual world to speak to us, take it into sleep. But what we begin to see here is that as a starting place, one of the images that begins to arise for us is the image of a tree with the roots. And light work, as we just read from Rudolf Steiner, engages thought. And it is the tree above ground. And what we're going to see is that dark work, according to Rudolf Steiner, engages the will, the root system of the tree, that which is below ground, subterranean, unseen, unless one expends a great deal of effort to explore it. This includes, not limited to, work that we do that moves from conscious work into the semi-conscious, the subconscious, the unconscious aspects of our being. But we know enough botany to know that the work, the life above ground in the light is almost completely dependent on the life that is taking place below ground. And I happen to be, thanks in part to preparing this presentation, have been really exploring this fact that light work engages thought and dark work engages will, says Rudolf Steiner, and this image of the tree. And with help, this is work that we need others to be in relationship with us as co-workers, as partners, as people that we can share our story with, and people we can go to for help when we get lost, when we can't bring the light into the darkness of our lives. And I've been grateful to have some of those people. And just one little quick other indication, when we're talking about this dark work, and as an initial framework, I'm just referring, as I just said, to sort of the unconscious aspects of ourselves. There is a distinction that I want to make here in terms of soul work. We've got the unconscious parts of ourselves. We have what's called the dark night of the soul kinds of experiences, and we have the abyss. And you could also say we have the threshold as another fourth kind of thing, that aspect of soul experience that is in this kind of direction. And it is, and so we're not going to split those out really in talking about them today, but I'll just highlight those, that these are four aspects of our life that we must engage with will in order to make progress in the light. And so all the unconscious stuff, the dark night of the soul stuff, the abyss, and the threshold work. Okay, so I'm going to kind of blitz through this real quickly as one more setup. We're going to a different lecture from Rudolf Steiner called Love and Its Meaning in the World. And this gives us a foundation for understanding, starting to come to grips with light work that engages thought and dark work engages will. The deeds of love are not deeds which look for compensation in the next life. By everything we do out of love, we only pay off past debts. Oh, I thought if I did good deeds and loved my neighbor as myself, I'd go to heaven. The deeds of love are not deeds which look for compensation in the next life. By everything we do out of love, we only pay off past debts. The only actions from which we gain nothing in the future are those we perform out of true, genuine love. It is because men are subconsciously aware of this that there is so little love in the world. A soul must be very advanced before deeds can be performed from which nothing is to be gained for itself. But then the world profits all the more. Love is the moral sun of the world. Interest in the earth's evolution is the necessary antecedent of love. A spiritual science without love would be a danger for humanity. Without sense-born love, nothing material comes into the world. Whoa. Without sense-born love, nothing material comes into the world. Without spiritual love, nothing spiritual comes into existence. We're talking about being creators, made in the image of God, being master manifestors. Creative forces unfold through love. We owe our existence to deeds of love wrought in the past. Creative forces unfold through love. We owe our existence to deeds of love wrought in the past. To pay off debts through deeds of love is therefore wisdom. As well as love, there are two other powers, might and wisdom. To these two, the concepts of magnitude and enhancement are applicable, but not to love. The all-embracing attribute of the Godhead is therefore not omnipotence, not omniscience, but love. God is love. God is supreme love, not supreme might, not supreme wisdom. The Godhead has shared these two with Ahriman and Lucifer, who in our typical frequent ways of thinking about that, we think of God as light and Ahriman and Lucifer as darkness. That's sort of a common conceptualization. So we've got this light and dark theme again going here. So Godhead has shared these two with Ahriman and Lucifer. Wisdom and might unfold in the world, but love is unique, a divine impulse. The mystery of Golgotha was fulfilled as a counterweight to the impulses of might and wisdom. We're going to see that the mystery of Golgotha is will. The mystery of Golgotha, and in part, I mean, mystery of Golgotha cannot just be, condensed into one word or something like that. But in the context of this conversation, will is one of the key things that Steiner is going to be setting up for us here. So the mystery of Golgotha was fulfilled as a counterweight to the impulses of might and wisdom, which are the realm of which Ahriman and Lucifer gift us with. And there are other beings, of course, that are involved in love and wisdom. But notice how Steiner is focusing on a particular perspective right now. He's not directly bringing in Sophia, for example. So, but he can't bring everything all at once. So, but we have to sort of grab a hold and work with this. Therefore, anyone who knows the mystery of love can be a Christian. Spiritual science must include this love. Otherwise, it leads to egoism, which, personally speaking, many a self-proclaimed light worker that I know struggles with this egoism. And yeah, me too. So the counter to that, the foundation for light work is and dark work ultimately is love. Because it's with that love that we go into the darkness. Anyway, the mystery of Golgotha is a deed of the gods and a concern of the gods. This deed cannot be understood out of wisdom, but only out of love. Together with selfishness, evil came into the world. It had to be so because without the evil, man could not lay hold of the good. But through man's conquest of himself, the unfolding of love has been made possible. The darkness has enabled the light to come into our ken, into our awareness, into our ability to will something different. Okay, So love is the moral sun of the world. And let's see. Oh, I'm going to pause here. Okay. With that as kind of an introduction to Martinmas and the sense of a starting place for the sort of this light and darkness, thinking and willing, good and evil, I'm going to hand it over to Alison.
Thank you, Lelan. It was a wonderful introduction, and there's a lot to think about there. And I want to thank everyone here who's gathered for this live Zoom presentation for what we have prepared to share, and plus welcome all those that are watching the recording in the future. So on to Diwali. So in India, one of the most significant annual celebrations is Diwali, the Festival of Lights. Diwali means row of lights in Sanskrit. And the festival is about light representing good, triumphing over dark representing evil, which is one reason why people light oil lamps as part of their celebrations. Hindus interpret Diwali story differently depending on which form of Hinduism they follow. But there is one common theme throughout that remains constant within every variation. And that is Diwali celebrates the victory of good over evil. Diwali is a 6-day autumn festival for those in India and that arose in India. And the dates of the celebration change every year, ranging across October and November in our Western calendar. So it's a movable feast, as is Easter. And the Diwali celebration occurs during the Hindu month of Kartik. Specifically, the High Diwali day occurs on the darkest day of the lunar month, which is the day of the new moon. Today, November 11, and where you are at least, not in New Zealand, but for most of you, November 11 is Martinmas, and tomorrow, November 12, is the actual day of Diwali this year. And the next time that Diwali falls this close to Martinmas will occur in 2042. So quite a long time in the future, when it will again fall on November 12. Now, because Diwali really overlaps Martinmas in the calendar, this weekend offers us a unique opportunity to explore the similarities and the differences between these two cultural and religious festivals, and possible connections between Martinmas and Diwali that we've found in Rudolf Steiner's teaching include the Michael mystery, the Krishna mystery, and the mysteries of good and evil. So we discovered these possibilities, but we're most inspired by the discovery that Martinmas and Diwali share the perspective that enlightened people of the light, that becoming enlightened people of the light also requires becoming redemptive people of the dark. In other words, the spiritual world is calling human beings forth to become both light workers and dark workers. People who live both in the light and in the dark. So we just need a little bit of clarity here. In the ancient mysteries, before the turning point of time, the incarnation of Christ into Jesus, before this point in time, light and dark correlated to good and evil. And a primary image is that of Michael slaying the dragon. And this is characteristic of sentient soul development work. Now, during the 2,000 years since the turning point of time, in both the Christian mysteries and Hindu mysteries, light and dark continue to correlate to good and evil. However, the image changes from Michael slaying the dragon to Michael subduing the dragon. And this is characteristic of heart and mind-soul development work. Okay, so no longer being slayed, now being subdued in these last 2,000 years. But now in the 21st century, an increasing percentage of human beings are at the threshold of consciousness soul. So we've gone from sentient soul through to heart and mind soul, and people becoming and moving and being at the threshold of this consciousness soul. And crossing the threshold into consciousness soul development brings us to the realm of the new evolving mysteries. Here, the image changes to Michael collaborating with the dragon. Collaborating means to co-labor, to become co-workers. In other words, in the new evolving mysteries, light and dark do not so much represent good and evil. Rather, light and dark, evil and good are all necessary mysteries requiring our conscious engagement. And Christ is found in the evoluting forms and balances of both light and dark, in the involuting forms and balances of good and evil. Well, Lelan, I think you have an exercise to share with us.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for that, Alison. I really appreciate that. So we contemplated going off and doing much more work with what Rudolf Steiner gives us as indications to help us understand Diwali, and by understanding Diwali to better understand Martinmas, because we can go in that direction and explore so many fruitful things. But we decided to set that one aside in order to focus on this world secret that Rudolf Steiner has referred to. So the two clairvoyance exercises are going to be coming directly out of Rudolf Steiner's descriptions and supporting indications in that color lecture one of the color series. And one of our goals is to model not just reading what Rudolf Steiner offers in his lectures as a means to improve our conceptual frameworks, but to then implement those concepts into real life by taking them for a test drive together. Again, one of these themes of doing light work, dark work, when we begin specifically, is that whether we're doing light work or dark work, the work needs to be done collaboratively in relationship with each other. Now, this is a known thing, but it is but out of our sentient soul selves, out of our heart and mind soul selves, we often strive to do it on our own. And we have to do most of the work on our own. Within the time-space continuum, it feels like doing it on our own. And that is very real and true, but it is to move past into the consciousness soul era, consciousness soul development of ourselves. There is this new way of needing to engage others and be engaged by others that is different from our sentient soul dependence on others and our heart and soul, heart and mind soul development. And so we believe that those who are gathered here today for this presentation and who will view it in the future are those people who are ready to do this kind of work collaboratively with others, sort of in view of others. We take it's dark work that we do in the light with each other. And so, but in addition to doing these two clairvoyance exercises, we also want to be doing eurythmy with each other to interweave these exercises. And the eurythmy is going to be led by Alison. In fact, we're going to start with eurythmy. So back to you, Alison.
Thank you, Lelan. Right, okay, so a little bit of introduction first. We human beings, we live our lives spanned between polarity. We're partly earth and partly heaven. We are partly weight and we are partly light. And so this eurythmy exercise, don't worry, it's going to be nice and simple. It's going to give us the opportunity to experience how we human beings live in this state of dynamic tension. And through this exercise, we can discover how we can balance these archetypal polarities of light and dark. So let's stand up and I will just move behind here and we will start our eurythmy. So we just want to get comfortable. So just give yourself a bit of a stretch. If you're standing up, release any tension, bit of a body shake. We've been sitting down for a little while. And just give yourself a little massage, a little body massage, just really to feel where you are in space. This amazing body, this amazing vessel that we have for our soul and our spirit, right down to our legs and feet. Take a deep breath in and release. Just standing calmly, just leaving the cares of the world aside and being present in this moment in time, becoming centered, being present in this moment in time, and also we can be aware of being present in this location in space. And by that I mean we are in this location between birth and death here on the earth as citizens of the earth, as representatives of the world. And I like to start my eurythmy meditation with a ray of light. So I enliven the light in my heart, and you can do this too. Enliven the light in your heart, fill it with warmth, and send it down through your torso, through your legs, to the feet, and into the earth below. And whilst holding that ray downwards through our body, enliven the light again in our hearts and sending it up through our heads into the earth above. Now I want us to turn our attention now to the feeling that we have when we think of the forces of gravity and feel how connected we are to the earth, to the world through this power of gravity and weight. Sense your physical body that we've just given this lovely little light massage to. See if you can sense your life body, your etheric body. Now we're going to take a step to the right and left and create a downward facing triangle. So step to the right and step to the left. And we're going to create this triangle, and the tip and the point of this triangle is above your heart in the center of your chest. So we've got this downward facing triangle. Feel grounded, feel the weight within this triangle. Weight bears downward. So let's bring our feet together. And now we're going to turn our attention to the feeling of lightness and the brightness above our heads, and how the whole world above us, and we can be open to this. So just effortlessly open yourself to the heavens by creating an upward facing triangle, and simply lift your arms upwards. Your palms are facing inwards. And you want your arms to be as wide as what your feet were. And keeping our gaze looking forward. Light streams upward. And we've got the point of this triangle at our abdomen, just below our solar plexus, just at our solar plexus. And below. And if your arms feel tired, simply bring them down before I suggest it. So now we have worked on this downward facing triangle, point at our, in the center of our chest, above our heart, and the upward facing triangle with the point at our solar plexus. So now we're going to bring these two together. Begin with the feeling of the tip of the triangle in your chest, and send a line of consciousness down your right leg through to your right foot and take a step to the right. Begin at the point, send a line of consciousness down your left leg to your foot and take a step to the left. Fill it with weight. Weight bears downward. Now we'll add the upward facing triangle, holding the imagination of this downward one. At the same time, we'll add the upward facing triangle on top. We've got the point at our solar plexus. Effortlessly lift your arms upwards and just let your movement breathe and look forward with your eyes. Light streams up. And release. So now we're just going to add some color to that, but I just want to mention this gaze of looking forward. So we just look forward with our eyes, but we have an open gaze through to the space above us, trying to perceive this space, but without looking at it directly. This open gaze. So we create the downward facing triangle, step to the right and step to the left. Fill it with weight and color it in your imagination with dark blue. You can imagine a line between your feet and the tip of the triangle above your chest, filled with weight in dark blue. Weight bears downward. Create the upward facing triangle. Point here to solar plexus, closing it off at the top and creating a triangle filled with lightness and the color of light yellow. Light streams up. And one more time, stepping to the right, stepping to the left, filling with weight and coloring it with dark blue. Weight bears downward. Upward facing triangle filled with lightness, closed at the top and colored yellow. Light streams upward. And release. And we'll just take a moment to let the experience that you've just had reverberate around you and through you, because these eurythmy movements are very nourishing and healing, not only for your physical body, but your etheric body. Healing and nourishing for your soul and consciousness. Just letting the after image resound through us on all these levels. Okay, thank you. Let's come back to our seats. So I think now we have an exercise here from Lelan, which I'm very much looking forward to.
Sorry, I'm having my little technical. Here we go. There, technical issues there. All right, Alison, that was just perfect for me. Thank you. You just still sort of have the energy here of that. Wow, I'm actually getting the shivers. Okay, well, maybe it's, which usually means the spiritual world is ready to do some things. It's already doing some things and is going to continue doing some things that we're going to be aware of. So that's exciting. So we'd like to do share two clairvoyant exercises. Now, that is doing this as a group is perhaps a little bit of a daring thing to do. I'm not aware of anyone else who's really doing this, and perhaps they are, and I'm just not aware of it. But let me just say a couple things very briefly about this, hopefully to shine some light on it and bring it out of the darkness. We're all naturally clairvoyant, and we are receiving in our souls the spiritual world, the nature around us is giving us imaginations. all the time, offering them to us, as well as inspirations and intuitions. And we very often, in just the normal way of going through life, do not take the time to separate out and distinguish what imaginations within us are generated by ourselves and what are generated sort of by not ourselves. But then as we penetrate even further into this, we become aware that we ourselves generate these imaginations and have these clairvoyant experiences, that there's many different aspects of ourselves that are generating them. And we think at the beginning that they are not ourselves, they're coming from somewhere else, but only perhaps gradually do we discover all the myriad ways in which we ourselves are clairvoyant, are generating these clairvoyant perceptions and imaginations. So what I'm going to be inviting you to do, as you're going to see, is going to have should hopefully, what I would anticipate is going to feel relatively natural, at least at the beginning. And it is going to be about working with our imaginations consciously. We're not going to be doing mediumistic kinds of exercises where we go unconscious. We're going to stay conscious the whole time. And we are going to be guided by some indications by Rudolf Steiner, going to have this practice of working from conscious imaginations that we create, and then we offer them and open them for comment, so to speak, by the spiritual world. If one might think of an artist, whether it's a child in preschool with a crayon on a piece of paper who shows the piece of art to a parent, and the parent takes it in and mirrors something back, responds, offers something in response to what the child has drawn, or any other kind of artist. There's this dialogue. There's the creation of an image, and then offering it, opening up to receive comment from others. And this is an example of the kind of, this is a clairvoyant dialogue that we have, imagination, and becomes conversation. So to set us up for both exercises, I have asked Alison if she'll read a quote, and we'll pop it up on the screen so you can see it as she reads. And then when she finishes reading her first slide, there'll be another slide, and I'll read that, and then we'll enter into the first exercise. So here we go. Here we go. Okay, Alison.
Thank you, Lelan. So this is a quote from Rudolf Steiner, Color Lecture 1, Thought and Will as Light and Darkness, GA 291, given on the 5th of December 1920 in Dornach. This is a way of viewing the cosmos, which can be extremely useful and suggestive to you if you wish to make use of it, if you really penetrate into such things. There's an invitation here. Your thought and whole soul life will become much more active than it otherwise is if you learn to put this thought before you. This is the thought. If I were to come out of myself, as indeed a person who goes to sleep, I continually do, and look back at my head, at myself, therefore, as a thinking man, I should see myself radiating forth light. If I were to leave the light-flooded world and look at it from outside, I should see it as a picture of thought as a thought being. You observe light and thought go together. They are identical, but seen from different sides. Now, the thought that is in us is really a survival from earlier times. The most mature thing in us, the result of former lives on earth. What formerly was will has become thought, and thought appears as light. So what was will has become thought, and that thought appears as light. And as a consequence, you will find where light is, there is thought. But how? In thought, or put differently, in light, a previous world continually dies. That is one of the world secrets. We look out into the universe, and it is full of light in which thought lives. But in this thought-filled light, there is a dying world. The world is continually dying in light.
Think now of the universe. You see it radiated with light, by day, of course. But in reality, you are looking at this universe from the outside. We now do the opposite. First, we have the human head, which contains thought in its development. Seen from outside, it has light. In the universe, we have light, which is seen by the senses. If we come out of the universe and regard it from outside, what does it look like then? Like a web of thoughts. The universe from within, light. From outside, thought. The head from within, thought. From outside, light. This is a way of viewing the cosmos, which can be extremely useful and suggestive to you if you wish to make use of it, if you really penetrate into such things. Your thought and whole soul life will become much more active than it otherwise is if you learn to put this thought before you. Put this thought before you. If I were to come out of myself, as indeed a person who goes to sleep I continually do, and look back at my head and myself, therefore, as a thinking person, I should see myself radiating forth light. If I were to leave the light-flooded world and look at it from outside, I would see it as a picture of thought, as a thought being. You observe, light and thought go together. They're identical, but seen from different sides. Now, the thought that is in us is really a survival from earlier times. The most mature thing in us, the result of former lives on earth. What formerly was will has become thought, and thought appears as light. As a consequence, you will find where light is, there is thought. But how? In thought, or put differently, in light, a previous world continually dies. This is one of the world's secrets. We look out into the universe. It is full of light in which thought lives. But in this thought-filled light, there is a dying world. The world is continually dying in light. Okay. So for the first exercise, it's going to actually have two parts. Where each exercise, really, we only need to take a couple of minutes with each one. We engage it, and then I'm going to provide an opportunity for us to have, we will provide an opportunity for a little bit of group discussion. And then we're going to do a variation on the first exercise. We'll have another little bit of conversation, and then we'll go back and shake it out, so to speak, connect up and ground down like a good tree with eurythmy. But so here I'm going to keep this slide up for a moment. Actually, I think I'll just keep it up for us during the two exercise 1A and 1B. So what Rudolf Steiner here in the second paragraph, this is a way of viewing the cosmos which can be extremely useful and suggestive to you if you wish to make use of it, if you really penetrate into such things. And that, dear friends, is the foundation for which we're going to do these exercises. This is an invitation. Don't just read this, practice it, figure out how to apply it. And so what Rudolf Steiner has done here is he's given us several, actually a whole bunch of different imaginations. So the first one that he gave us, as Alison read, we just go back up here, it is this, as a thinking person, okay, your thought and whole soul life will become much more active than it otherwise is if you learn to put this thought before you. That's what our clairvoyant exercise is going to be. We're going to put this thought before us. We're going to apply what Rudolf Steiner is telling us. Take it out of the concept and put it into practice. If we look back at my head, at myself as a thinking man, I should see myself radiating forth light. But if I leave the light-flooded world and look at it from outside, I should see it as a picture of thought, as a thought being. You observe, light and thought go together. They are identical, but seen from different sides. Where light is, there is thought, because thought, put differently, is light. So we're going to invite you to we're going to take just a couple of minutes, and I'm going to invite you to do what Rudolf Steiner is suggesting and inviting us to do. Bring into your imagination, create an imagination, use your thought, your power of thought, to create an imagination of your thinking head. And this is, remember, Rudolf Steiner has said right here, to imagine yourself, right? So don't imagine somebody else's head. You can, that's a different type of exercise, but we're going to follow this indication. So imagine yourself, and imagine your head and the thinking and the light. And there's this looking at it from the inside and looking at it from the outside. From the head from within is thought. The head from outside, looked at from the outside, looking at your head, is light. All right, so we'll give you a couple minutes and just imagine that, work with that, go into that imagination. In your head is thought. Look at your head now, look at yourself from the outside and see light. Create that imagination, and then just like a preschooler with crayon on paper, show it to your audience, show it to your family, show it to the spiritual world, and be open to what is communicated to you. All right? Go. Okay. I welcome you back. We're going to open it up for just a few minutes of conversation. You may what you share what your experience was. Do you have a question? Did you receive an epiphany? Just in a little bit of interaction, and then we're going to go into it and do it again, a variation.
I can share something if you like.
Yes.
It was it's nice to go inside my head and feel what's going on inside my head. And there it felt very dark. And that was the thought. But there wasn't, it was just a feeling, really. I didn't really see it as thought, but I saw it as quite an enclosed place. And then looking at it from the outside, the light immediately came because I was no longer inside my head. So it was quite a clear distinction of, it reminded me of another exercise of drawing a yellow circle, I think in the morning, and then a blue circle at night, almost like the, it's a polarity, isn't it? The polarity of being inside and outside. That's as far as I got, as well as thinking about other things, because it was nice to close my eyes for a while.
Thank you.
I can offer my experience. This is Angeli. I'm at my farm right now, so looking like a farmer. And I imagined my head. So okay, back of my head, little cowlick, in the hair. But my attention went right to the light, being on the outside, and I really felt the light, and it was very weightless, and vast, just very, very spacious, like no horizons. But it was still here, more or less in the earthly plane. It wasn't, outer space or something. But yeah, just no, it was just, it was like infinite. And I really liked that, felt very happy about that, but also was saying, okay, I don't want to create this myself, so saying to the spiritual world, I really want this to be from you, not just me coming up with it. And it was quiet for a bit, but then I swear there was dancing. There were like beings, and not super distinct shapes, but and not super close to me either, but kind of midway between me and the infinite, horizon. But they were all just dancing together, having the best time. And I joined them, and it was just really touching. It was just really touching. And I had the nuance of, I'll have to, reflect on all of this, but that, oh my goodness, this is not just what I get to be part of, but this makes me tear up. I get to create this. I get to call it into being. I get to say, let there be dancing. And it is so. And that's just so profound. It's such an honor, such a privilege to get to do that. And it's a responsibility. I want to do that well. So yeah, it was a really, really lovely experience. Yeah, thanks.
Ah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us. Leon.
Hi, Lelan.
Hi.
My goodness. I have to admit, I was in a phone conversation with my son up to the minute of this. So I kind of entered the process without being properly set, as it were. And what came up for me was two things. I acknowledged you at one point. We talked about my college crest from Oxford, and you were the only person I knew who knew what martlets were. Remember that?
I do.
Well, all the colleges have their own crests, but the crest for the university bears the motto, "The Lord is my light." And this has become an important meditation in my life. I am very fond of that being my university motto and commitment, even though, in practice these days, it might not be so much so as 1,000 years ago when the monasteries converted to colleges. But that was one comment. And the other was, I remembered an incident where I was in a Catholic church. It was a special occasion where a charismatic priest came with allegedly bits of the cross and gave a homily on forgiveness at the end of the Mass. And during that, I entered a state of meditation in which my cranium, I experienced internally as white light, totally kind of a void or a chamber of white light. And I wondered if anyone else had experienced this kind of reversal of the principle in a way, where the light is internal. Has anyone in the group experienced meditation of that kind? I would comment at the end of this that I was in a state of argument from my last visit to England with my father. And through this process, when I went back to England, it is like it never happened. There was total forgiveness on both sides.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Leon. Well, thank you for the three of you who shared each of your unique experiences with this. And I think that diversity that we have heard in the three would be multiplied as each of us shared our experience. And I think in what was shared, I think Anjali's sharing was the most clear, where she was able to describe for us moving from the sort of conscious thought, consciously creating thought, imaginations, and then experiencing the shift into the clairvoyant, using that word loosely now, so really more accurately, moving from sort of the sensory thinking, sensory imagination into a supersensory experience. And I think that Alison and Leon weren't maybe quite as clear in what they shared. And if we were going to do a follow-up conversation with each of them, we would take a look for that and look to see where and maybe get some additional detail and maybe together be able to find out where the experience, which memorable enough to be able to describe it to us, and thank you for the gift, all three of you, what elements sort of began and remained sensory, and when and if at all did it sort of become supersensory. So, and Leon talking about memories did that stay, so to speak, within just his etheric self, so to speak, within the sensory? I'm using that a little bit loosely here. Or was there a communication that was coming through that memory, where memory is being brought up by other beings? We'll just leave it at that. There's a whole lecture on that Rudolf Steiner gives on this. And same for Alison. Which elements were she aware of uniquely and distinctively hers, and what in some of the imaginations or things that came as she was engaging them, was there sort of feedback or mirroring or assistance from other beings, not herself? So that gives you a little feel for how one might engage this kind of work, and start to, by doing these kinds of things repeatedly. Leanne made a reference to meditation, and certainly Rudolf Steiner says that the foundations for us to be doing this kind of supersensory relationship work, perception work, begins with meditation and contemplation and other things. And these become the foundation for being able to engage what you are doing here. Well, I am aware of the time, and so I'm not actually going to we don't have time to do sort of part B of this, but part B was already right there on that slide, where it was making a reference to doing the same kind of thing, but now as one does with one's head, but now do that in the cosmos. So in which one imagines oneself in the cosmos, and where there is light, and then one imaginatively steps outside the cosmos and looks back at the cosmos and doesn't see light, but sees thought. So it's a similar, but it flips. And so, but we don't have time. So I'm going to hand to Alison for our second eurythmy exercise.
Thank you, Lelan. So we're just going to build and repeat on the exercise that we've done previously, and I just want you to know if you're worried that you didn't perceive any color, not to be concerned about that. Some people don't see color. Just try and work towards having that in your imagination, because it can deepen your experience. So let's stand up. So again, just a slight shake off the tension and stretch, feeling yourself centered, feet slightly together, slightly apart. Take a deep breath in and release. So we're just going to create that downward facing triangle. Remember, we've got the point at our chest. We're going to fill it with weight and color that whole downward triangle with dark blue. So step to the right and step to the left. Filling it with weight and dark blue. Weight bears downward. Create an upward facing triangle with the point at our solar plexus. We'll fill it with light, and we will fill that field, that triangle, with yellow. And your arms the same width as your feet, looking forward. Light streams upward. Now I want you to take a deep belly breath and try and perceive where the field is, where the two triangles overlap. See what you can sense there and intensify that. In the middle, I hold the balance. Step together. So we'll just run through that twice more. Downward triangle. Weight and blue. Weight bears downward. Upward triangle with yellow and light. Light streams upward. Perceive the overlap. Intensify the feeling. In the middle, I hold the balance. Last time. Weight bears downward. Light streams upward. In the middle, I hold the balance. Going to let that after image resound through us on these many levels. Let the fruits of the exercise settle into you. Through Thank you. Let's come back to our seats and we can have a discussion on some of your experiences. So perhaps you might have been imagining this or experiencing this type of feeling like Winnie the Pooh here, feeling upside down, being lifted into levity. Or perhaps you had some other experiences. So now I just open up for discussion to see what people would like to share. If we are doing this exercise at home, we can think afterwards, how did I experience my etheric? Was I able to hold the balance in the middle? Was I able to ground myself so strongly that I really felt rooted and connected with the earth, that no one could push me over? Did I really experience that weight? And what was it like to balance the weight and the light? And was it easier to work with one pole versus the other?
Yeah, Alison, for me, I found myself oscillating a little bit. Like I could connect up and I could ground down, but finding that middle place, it's like, oh yeah, I'm kind of there, but it was like a canoe on the water. a little bit, you know, just kind of, you know, staying there, kind of in a dynamic balance. And then there was that moment when it just sort of like locked in, and it was both like as strongly connected upward as grounded downward. And that was amazing.
Thank you. Yes, you've raised your hand.
Yeah, I didn't know how you guys wanted to do this. Well, like Angelique, well, there's my thumb. I'm outside too, trying to get away from the smoke of my bonfire. So it's been kind of fun for me and a little bit more deeply meaningful to be out here with a bonfire, you know, out in nature. I worried that my neighbors were going to think that I was a little bit insane doing that eurythmy out here, but it was beautiful. It felt, it connected me more to the earth, yes, as you asked about that, but also to just the community of the people on the phone. I felt us all doing that together. It felt so good. It just felt so good, and it was one of the more meaningful things on this. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Tess, for your sharing.
I've just drawn it because just to make it more real for me, and it was nice to feel it. I like that exercise just to do some eurythmy was wonderful. To lift my arms up and be connected to the ground, that's a real gift. And I was trying to think as I was doing it what color it would create, the blue and the yellow, and I think it's green, isn't it? Green in the middle. Even though I haven't got green in my picture, but I believe it's blue and yellow is green. That's really nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you for sharing that the image, and it's nice that you've brought up the color, because this green color is a mixture of the yellow and the blue, and this combination of the light and the dark color together. And color is really connected very closely with our astral body, and which we know changes with emotions. So to have that working through, like I said, these various layers of our body as we repeat the exercise and work with it and let it resonate afterwards. And blue's got this downward sort of dark, contemplative, enfolding experience, and the yellow is joyful, and it streams out. I mean, to come through into the green in the middle, which is very calm, and, balancing. It doesn't have the weight of the blue or the lightness of the yellow. So thank you for that. Judy, please unmute.
Yes, hello, thank you. For me, the blue triangle was at once a connection with Sophia. I felt this most deeply, and the yellow light I associated with the Christ, and so this was very very heartwarming and fulfilling, and of course the green. Or the connection of the two when we did this second exercise. So that was my experience. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing. We appreciate it. Now, Lelan, I think it's time to hand it back over to you. Are you feeling calm and centered and balanced?
Yes, I am. And enthusiastic to just be here with all of you. This is just great. I'm going to move back to screen share for us. see. So as we move into the second exercise, it also comes out of this indication here, these indications from Rudolf Steiner. I'm going to reread it to set it up, starting with the second paragraph on the screen. So this is a way of viewing the cosmos, which can be extremely useful and suggestive to you if you wish to make use of it, if you really penetrate into things. Your thought and whole soul life will become much more active than it otherwise is if you learn to put this thought before you. Here's the thought. If I were to come out of myself, as indeed I do whenever I go to sleep, so we know we can do it. If I were to come out of myself and I look back at my head, at myself, therefore as a thinking person, I should see myself, I will see myself radiating forth light. If I were to leave the light-flooded world and look at it from outside, I would see it as a picture of thought, as a thought being. You observe, light and thought go together, they are identical, but seen from different sides. So now that's the setup for doing the next exercise. Third paragraph. Now, the thought that is in us is really a survival from earlier times, the most mature thing in us, the result of former lives on earth. What formerly was will has become thought, and thought appears as light. And in this lecture on color, he has indicated for us that light we think of as light, bright, thinking. Thinking is we may associate with light, and will is associated with darkness. And so in the eurythmy exercise that Alison has been leading us through, guiding us to experience, and as Judy mentioned, with her drawing, the light penetrating the darkness, creating something new in the middle, right? So thought intersecting will creates something new. And so you can go to the lecture and elsewhere in Rudolf Steiner to explore this more, but I hope you see how these pieces are all coming together, at least for Alison and me. So as a consequence, you will find where light is, there is thought. But how? In thought, or put differently, in light, a previous world continually dies. That is one of the world's secrets. We look out into the universe, it is full of light in which thought lives as a being or beings. We read that quote earlier, and he says this in other lectures as well. But in this thought-filled light, there's a dying world. The world is continually dying in light. All right, so here's what I'd like to invite you to do. This is going to be a free form because, again, this is a way of viewing the cosmos, which can be extremely useful and suggestive to you if you wish to make use of it, if you really want to penetrate into such things. So I'm going to invite you to focus on the last two paragraphs on the screen and seek to move from your reading, which is going to invite you not to just form a conceptualization, but actually to create, pick one, there's more than one possibility here, create an imagination. Create a wholly kind of sensory, as if you could, touch it, you can walk around it and see it from the back. Create an imagination that flows from Rudolf Steiner's indications in these last two paragraphs. Enter into it and open it up for the spiritual world to engage with you. And this does not have to become laborious. This is not, yes, you could take a great deal of time for this, but really you're capable. You have the ability. Like, pick something, read it, pick an imagination, imagine it, and open it up to the spiritual world. All right. And then we'll come back in a couple minutes and we'll talk together. Okay. Time to start coming back. As we move into this opportunity to share with each other our experience, one comment is one of my dear friends and mentors is Brian Gray. And I've been with Brian a number of times in many of his classes and workshops. And many times I've heard the comment from participants that Brian makes Rudolf Steiner understandable. And one of the gifts that Brian gives to us is his ability to do exactly what we've been doing here. Brian doesn't just read Rudolf Steiner and for concepts, but he makes it living. He takes it into imagination. He takes it into dialogue with the spiritual world. And then he comes back out of that co-partnership, and he has these imaginations that he then strives to figure out how to be able to put like on a blackboard. And he starts taking all of this amazing material from Rudolf Steiner and is able to then share it with us with these living imaginations that he has developed in co-laboring with the spiritual world. And so that what we've been doing today with these exercises has been that same kind of invitation to start experimenting with how do you take some things that conceptually seem incongruous or contradictory or nonsensical, or maybe there's this glimmer and we kind of like have a little thread, but not sure exactly how it connects to everything else we know. This is one kind of exercise by which you can enter into spiritual content and begin to bring it out of the darkness, so to speak, into the light. All right, as we go into a little bit of sharing, what I'd like to do is ask you, and is the comments to focus specifically on you can talk about anything you want if you've got something you want to share, but in the time available, I'd especially like to hear what your experience of doing the exercise was. Were you aware of where it went from your imagination into an imagination coming as a reflection or a response back? Did it expand, or a communication of another kind, like Anjali's awareness of the spiritual world dancing? Let's focus on that kind of transition, and maybe you can try to describe how you experienced that. And let's start with that, if anybody has some of those, and if there's not any of that after a minute or so, then we can widen out our conversation. Okay? I didn't quite hear that. Go.
Okay, this is Brenda. I don't know if you can hear me. I usually have a lot of trouble, but for the second exercise, I imagined that I was in another body, and that this body went out into space or the cosmos, and I looked at the world. I just looked down and bent over the world. That was extremely unusual. I don't usually have those things happen to me, so.
Awesome, Brenda. Yeah, and we heard you. I heard you. That was great. Thank you for sharing that. So I would just suggest, comment that when you do an exercise like this with the intentionality of working with spiritual information, you may not know yet whether it's true or not, but some information that has the potential to be potent and true, and you engage it in this way, and by this holy imagination, this is a safe place, a safe kind of exercise, and then you're opening yourself up with consciousness to the spiritual world, and then something happens, something shifts, something changes, something gets added, something gets expanded. Whatever happens, you've done a lovely job of describing that transition, where it moves from being sort of just you in your own cranium to being a relationship and a dialogue, and that's beautiful. Thank you. And if you've listened to me teach before, you've heard me say this many times, but it's a great opportunity because I haven't said it yet today. And that is, a wonderful thing you can have, Brenda, like in your experience that you described. So you're there, you're having the experience. And from now at that point, it's like the conversational baton, the relational baton is sort of passed back to you. You offered something. The spiritual world offers something back, and now you get to decide what to do next. This is will and thought, right? So out of your will, free will, you offered a thought, you receive something back, which is in you're experiencing it, whatever aspects of your being and soul that you're experiencing it. And now it's back to the opportunity for your will. And you can do anything, and there's no right or wrong way. But what I learned myself, and what I like to mention, is when the spiritual world is responding to us and gifting us, they usually have more than one thing. But they're not going to overwhelm us. by giving us one thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. They cherish what we offer, and then they give it to us to cherish, and then we can offer something else back, or we can say anything else. And, you know, that's our offering, is to ask the question, to stay open for something else, and then they may give us something else. All sorts of different ways of doing it, but you don't have to just stay there. And with this, you make this dialogue, and it's in this relationship. And here's where this is going, right? Where this becomes what we are doing all the time. When we're awake, and as Rudolf Steiner said, we've read it at least twice, and when we're asleep. This is the praying without ceasing. This is an example of that, in which this is a constant dialogue as we go through every aspect of our lives. Okay, anybody else want to share something?
Yes, I had an experience that evolved, so it's hard to remember it all. But components that I can remember are that moving from the light that enlivened thought created, that took me beyond myself into the universe, where the universe was light-filled, that appeared as a communion. So it was light arising from a human being and light being met by light, and that was a creative moment, that was a fulfillment. It felt like a fulfillment. And in that moment, that particular iteration of the world ceased, and a new one was born. And so the dying was also the opportunity for a birth into a new world in which that could happen again.
Wow. That's so awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So, and again, I'll just mention briefly that that's, you could, if you wanted to take that with further thought and go back to this particular lecture, thought and will are in there too. So, right? So, yes. Oh, that was great. All right. Anyone else?
Sure, I can share. Okay, forgive whatever my phone is doing with backgroundy stuff. I don't know why. I wasn't clear whether we were to choose a thought or, you know, come up with something and then offer it or not. But I said, you know what, this is experimenting and the spiritual world is kind and generous. So I more just opened myself and said, okay, what you got? Let's do this. And I had this picture of kind of a disc of wood, like you would cut a circle or slice, you know, of a big tree. But it was in space or something, and the bark was probably, now you're going to hear my nerd self. It's like, okay, was it an oak tree? Was it a pine tree? You know, I think it was more of a, you know, but deeply rutted, like maybe a redwood. And I think there was a door, you know, and I approached it and opened it and went inside, and you know, instead of this like pretty, you know, measured small slice of something, it opened up into this like Disney princess, Beauty and the Beast ballroom. And guess what? There was dancing. There were beings. I think there was one, kind of a younger woman, yes, Disney princess kind of outfit, running up, oh, I'm so glad you're here. And so that was the gist of it. I think I started like questioning, am I making this up? And so it wasn't as clear, after that. But the central part, was entering this disc of sliced wood, and I have no idea what that means. But if the spiritual world gives us things, one thing at a time, and they can have meaning connected to other things, then I'm going to take it as meaningful and pursue understanding it.
Great, Anjali. And yeah, and you can just go right back there. These kinds of conversations take place outside of space and time ultimately. And so you can just enter right back in and pick up the conversation with you when you left off, just like good friends who don't see each other for a long time. You can reconnect and say, hey, anything about that?
Right. Thank you.
All right.
That's it.
Well, I am aware that we have actually reached the end of our time. Andre and everyone, if you'll just give us a few minutes, I'd like to hand it over to Alison, we're out of time to do the exercise, but Alison has some closing thoughts for us.
Thank you, Lelan. I was just going to repeat the eurythmy exercise that we did before, but you can do this at home. And if you do, just hold those gestures for 5 to 10 seconds at a time and think those words as thoughts internally. And so we just do it in silence. And remembering to let the nourishment resound through you as you rest after the exercise. I have a verse here for us, which I will share, by Rudolf Steiner, and it comes from the book Breathing the Spirit, Meditations for Times of the Day and Seasons of the Year. And the title is Lamp. In my physical body as vessel is my etheric body as oil. From this is nourished as is the flame of my soul's body, and shining like the flame's light live my eye. And the last quote that I just wanted to share from Rudolf Steiner, called Awakening to Community, given on the 27th of February, 1923. When you have discovered the possibility that human souls wake up in the encounter with human souls, and human spirits wake up in the encounter with human spirits, go to anthroposophical groups with a living awareness that only now have you come awake, and only now begin to grow together into an understanding of anthroposophy, and take these anthroposophical ideas into an awakened soul rather than into an everyday soul, which is asleep to these higher things. Then the true spirit of community descends upon the place where you are gathered.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone for being here with us and allowing us to share what's ripening within our own lives. And thank you for sharing the reflections back with us. We're grateful. Thanks so much.
Yeah, dear Lelan and Alison, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much for your light and very nice experiential workshop with us. It's always such a good mood you're bringing to us in whole world, by the way. Yes, dear friends, I'd like to invite you for our future presentations, which will be done by Christopher Hampton Butt from UK at the same time next week. And 2 weeks from now, it will be Steve Usher from Austin, Texas. Yeah, again, thank you so much, Lelan and Alison. Dear friends, please feel free to unmute your machine and clap to our friends. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. Thanks to all of you.
Take care,
Been
dear
a
friends.
joy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks very much.